start recording so you guys can go refer through the discussions. So,
Right.
Samuel,
So I kind of did mine based of the diagrams that were sent to us.
okay, are you
Uh,
sharing?
no, I'm yet to share.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting the information ready before.
All right.
All right.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. So I was doing this based on the diagram that was provided on Thursday, and this is per the ability of the user to calculate the loans, right? So first of all, the test design, I'm sorry. So the text design was tested by me. My name is Samuel Kwakupum. The test design date was on the 31st. The version is 1.0. The test priority is high because we need to find a way for the dealer to be able to pretty much calculate the loan payments. This is a
So,
test case 2. Mhm.
Samuel, like it's so I'm good. Let's start with the test title and preconditions, right? So
Okay,
the title, tell us which one of the scenario you are like writing this test case for.
right. So the test scenario that I'm referring to is test scenario. I'm sorry. Uh, One moment. I'm sorry. I'm doing this from my tablet, so it's a bit
That's okay.
difficult.
We can see it. We can just see just fine.
Got it.
Oh, you minimize your that. There we go. We are good now.
Okay, got it. So the test case should be test case. Where did I put this?
Maybe you can look at the tab that he go ahead and scroll it. I think it's. I'm
Right.
not convinced
So
about that you need that precondition.
right. So the test case is test case 2.1. Oh, I'm sorry, 2.6. My bad. So it's
Okay.
2.6, where the test title is the ability to calculate loans within a 60-month period. The precondition is provide the ability to calculate loan payments based on the predefined calculations.
Okay. So
There. Mhm.
Samuel, what one thing? So within that requirement, on Thursday we talked about 5 different test cases. Which one of this thing is that?
It is a test case requirement 2.
No, not the requirement. So if you remember on Thursday, we talked about it. There were 5 different test cases you have to write it in order to fulfill that requirement. Which one of the 5 is this one? Can we have only one conversation at a time in the room, please? Go ahead, Samuel.
So I'm trying to understand the question. You said that which test scenario?
Go ahead and share your steps. Then I'll go
Oh,
ahead. There are 5 scenarios that we talked about in order to fulfill that requirement. Remember, we talked about no data, a number, a text, a negative number.
right. So with this, what I did was I ended up like um pretty much just given a general scenario here, because the test steps that I have was the first step would be input valid loan amount. Um, my expectation was that it should accept the loan amounts via numerical values or decimals. So the numerical values can be either the negative or positive numbers.
Okay. So I see at your steps, there are few missing pieces. I think it's you got just only the logical aspect. One is your precondition doesn't make sense, right? Because precondition is the requirement that you're going to get the predefined calculations.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't tell it who I'm logging in as, what are the user ID and password I'm supposed to use to logging in to go calculate the loan amount. Also, it
Oh,
doesn't say what number I will put it into the system for the loan amount and what should be my expected result. So like it's, for example, am I going to put $1,000? Then what should I get it back?
oh,
Because
okay.
I have to compare to that.
Oh,
Because
so we
a bunch
should
of test data, but I don't see test data used in any one of the test steps.
got it. Got it. All right. So you want us to specify each pretty much everything that we're going to be testing, we're supposed to
Yes.
specify. That way we can get a specific results, correct?
Yeah, so if you give me this test case and said, Dilip, go run it, I would not know who to log in as,
Mm-hmm.
where to go, because if I'm just gonna follow the test steps, it says input valid loan amount. Well, where? How did I reach to that step?
Got it.
And when you say it's calculate the made up loan value over a 60-month period, well, it doesn't tell me what to do.
Mm,
I'm supposed to do that.
understood. Understood. All right.
Okay.
Is it okay if I revise the whole thing and then get back to you on that?
Yeah, you have to, because otherwise you will not be able to run any test on this.
Right, right, right.
Okay.
All right.
So go
Thank
ahead
you.
and update that. Thank you for sharing. So let's go to the next person. Kingsley, can you share yours? Kingsley, are you able to hear me? We'll come back to him later. Tiff, can you share your test case?
Sure. So basically mine was how the lender cannot modify the application data. And I started by saying that project name was rflown and the module name was security, just for the reason that this is an application where someone cannot get the access. So that's what the reason I said security of the module.
Okay.
And uh, the
So if
data.
you look at it, right? So based on a test title that you're talking about, the module should be the lender, because it's a lender functionality that you're testing.
Oh, so the module name is gonna be the lender functionality?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just give me a second, I'll write it down.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to look at it where the requirement falls and what is it functional, is it security, what it is.
Oh,
So
I said that I thought they didn't mention anything much on the thing, so I just like assumed that this might be in security since they cannot, modify or they cannot like access the.
yes, security is more around authentication and authorization component of it,
Mhm.
not necessarily the functional data of it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So let's start with the test title. I think it's all the other one is we can clearly understand what it is. So
Yeah. So should I just go to directly down?
yeah, just start with the test title. Tell me what the precondition is.
Okay. So basically, my test title is lender cannot modify the application data, and my precondition is that the lender account does exist in the system, and the provider did provide the details are provided in the data section. And I think I made a mistake at the test summary where I said the super user can successfully log in, but it's supposed to be the lender can successfully log in.
Yep.
I just misspelled it.
Okay.
And they can log in and they have application to the all of their own application data, like whichever he owns applications, like for example, whatever on his name or whichever falls under his name, he has access to those application data, but he cannot change those or he cannot modify those. He can only view those.
Okay, let's look
And,
at this.
and the steps to those are basically, so the first, you gotta enter the URL, and the expected thing is that the homepage of the application is displayed in the browser. And then you enter the user ID and the password provided on the data section, basically, and then you click login button, which takes you to the lender,
Okay.
or the lender homepage will be displayed. Then on the top right, you click on the application button, and then the lender successfully opens their application portal, and then to review, and after that he can just review the application, like if there any changes need to be made, and if there are any changes need to be made, he needs to let know the super user or the one he's coordinating with to change it.
Okay, can you scroll down to data section?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go back to step number 3 and 4 in your stuff.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, when I click on the application button,
Mhm.
And you say that I'm supposed to open the application portal.
Yeah.
What if there is no application assigned to me at this point?
Then isn't that gonna be an error? Because or
Tell me, you wrote the test case.
wait, sorry, you cut
You
off.
wrote the test case, so you
Yeah.
tell me what is your understanding. If I run into that scenario,
Mhm.
what I'm supposed to do?
So if you run it, if you don't, I mean, if the application is not assigned to you, the portal will take you to no application posted displayed page. So do we have to write that? I'm sorry, I didn't know about that.
Okay, so anybody in the class? What's your thought? Go ahead, Sheila.
So the title says lender cannot modify the data. How is the step validating that title? So far, there is no validation that has happened in this step.
Alright.
That we have tried to change the data, but it's not working.
Okay. So did you hear that, what Sheila said?
Sorry, she was cutting off. I could barely hear her.
Okay, Sheila, if you can just repeat, what do you say?
So there, I said that the title said lender cannot modify application data, but your steps, I don't follow, or it doesn't resemble that we have tried validating or changing the data, and the result says you cannot change it.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. So
Because I same case as you,
Mhm.
and my first step was login as a lender ID and password. My second step was click on the credit application to be reviewed. My third step says validate that no modification to the application can be done, and log out.
Okay.
So, I had a question real quick. So like every time do we do like, I thought the steps are like, how can we protect it, or the steps supposed to be like what the lender supposed to do?
So the step should be, think of it, right? Your requirement is that as a lender, I cannot modify.
Mhm.
So the steps that you have to write it is to prove that I tried to modify, but I could not.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, then I misunderstood everything. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
There is
because
still,
I thought that we just go through yeah.
okay. So there is still the same question applies to you, Sheila. Is how do I know if there is no application
Yes.
in the system? Then how do I address it?
I didn't understand that question. What do you mean by not good?
So if I read this thing, right? If I'm just a brand new lender and there's no data in the system or no credit application assigned to me, if that is a scenario, how are you going to prove that I can do anything? You're assuming that there is always an application assigned to a lender. But that's not always the case.
But then that scenario, and that test is written different.
No, it's still part of the lender.
Still part of this. Yeah, if there is nothing there, one thing you want to do is go and create an assign.
Precisely. Because you are a tester.
An assigned application to the lab.
Yeah.
So you need to have the step, either put it in the presentation or put it in the step.
So I would have done a little bit differently in this one, right? So in
Yeah.
addition to the precondition where the lender exists in the system, I would also put it that there is an application existent. I would specify specific application ID
Mhm.
and make sure that this ID is assigned to this lender.
Okay, that makes sense. So like we need to go more details, right?
And then when you say it is, hey, as a lender, you log in and you thing is, then you click on that application with that ID. Because you know for sure, because you put in precondition that is assigned to you,
Yeah.
and then you try to modify that, and then you prove it that you cannot modify it.
So in
Oh.
my prediction, I wrote lender should have application in the system.
But
That was my
what,
prediction.
what is should have, it means.
So should I write?
If there are 50, which one you want me to test it?
The application specifically exists.
Okay.
assigned to the lab.
You got to be, so think of it this way. If I give this to you, if you have questions, that means some details are missing. Right? If you don't have a question, you say, I can exactly do that. Because in this scenario, right? If I give you a system, it says, go ahead and test this functionality. And if there is no application in the system, can you do it? Cannot. Right? So those are the kind of things that you need to think about. Right? Either you provide that, or as Marshall stated, the other alternative way would be same functionality. Right? Then in that case, I would create a dealer. I would have a dealer and a lender in the system. First, I will log in as a dealer. I'll create the credit application, pick that lender, assign to the lender, submit the application. Then as a lender, I will log in and I try to review that application, say, can I make change anything or not? Right? So you have to be that explicit, because remember, every step you should be able to answer, is expected result match the actual result, yes or no? And if you're not able to say that yes or no, that means something is missing.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's go. So do you have any ready that you want to review?
No, I have an incomplete one, so I don't think it's really good to review.
Okay, all right. Let's see it. Anybody in the class? Are you ready to share? Okay. So if you can just forward that to me or Herschel, we can bring it up here. Did you send it to Herschel?
No, I just made correction. I have to send one.
Yeah, just send that to me or Herschel. Or Herschel, are you able to just pull it up?
Let me just put it up and now.
Okay.
So let me send you one.
Yes.
I believe you sent me yesterday.
No, she's going to send you a new one that she made a correction.
I'm
So,
sorry.
so go ahead and send that, Nisha, to him.
And you guys can do the same thing with those in the classes. You guys can send me and I'll go and send it for you.
I have to send it through.
Is there any Wi-Fi?
Yeah, you should be able to just go to Intellix student, and capital L Intellix is the credential ID.
Security.
Just type in all capital Intellix.
Intelix, student Azure.
Anybody else want to, send it, Miles sees,
Anybody, well, yeah,
Go and send me, okay? So that we can, read up the next one. Send the different ones, okay? Whatever we discussed, just send me the different one that you have.
I said no if you want to share.
Okay. Let me
Yeah, you
check.
can go ahead.
Yep, I got you. I'm gonna go and share yours first, okay?
Thank you.
all right. All right,
Okay. Nice.
so let's talk through it, Megha, in your precondition, right?
I need to change that.
So walk through it, right? What I want to do is I want to get your mindset and process, right? So tell me, if you said that you need to change it, what would you change it and what exactly you're expecting it to be ready in the system before you go and try to rep this thing?
I want to change it to that the lender already exists in the system.
Okay,
By instead of saying, because lender is the only one who's gonna have the authorization to either change it or, change the status. So, I would say that lender already exists in the system with the precondition.
so you're gonna change. Let me see. Okay, I don't know whether I can write it now, but you're gonna change this particular condition, right? Okay, and then, I'm sorry, this particular condition.
Right.
Lender has authorization to change status.
Right.
Now, help me understand what do you mean by create a new credit application as a precondition? Because it's a task. All right, so whenever I say something create, it's an action that you want me to take it.
Oh,
Remember, precondition should not be an action, should be telling you what is the state of the system.
okay. Because I'm trying to approve this application, so in order to do that, I have to, because the system doesn't know that the application already exists in the system. So you have to go ahead and create the application. So my understanding that I should put that in the precondition.
You don't have to, right? So think of it, because you're taking these steps, right? So I'm assuming you have steps which tells you to create a new credit application. So in those scenarios, I would not put this.
Okay, so then.
I would put just only this thing is lender has logged in the system and they have an authorization, which is, you don't even have to put the authorization in the system because that's part of the functionality. It's expected, right? So here I would change my precondition only to say that lender exists in the system and provide their credentials. Okay, let's go to the steps, Harshal, then.
Just a question here on the title. So there are a couple of scenarios here, right? So what scenario you are trying to tackle here in this case?
To approve the.
You're
credit
just doing
application.
approve.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, okay, that's it.
yeah, let's go.
An approved credit application.
Right.
Makes sense.
Okay. So let's say that you are entering the URL.
Yes.
Okay, so log in. So walk me through the step 2 onwards. First one, I understood it.
So I'm actually going to the website and then I'm logging as a dealer because I'm trying to create the application.
Okay,
And once I have created the application, I log out as a dealer 1 and then I log in as a lender. And then my next step should be that I need to assign the credit application to lender. So I feel like I'm missing that step.
yeah, so I would say So when I look at it, right, so logically you're right, but you have to provide some additional detail.
Okay.
So think of it, right? So I'm logging as a dealer one, you provide it, right? So that I can figure it out.
Right.
But you say create a credit application for lender one. I don't know how to create it, right? Unless you tell me instruction, what data I'm supposed to use it to create that application. There is nothing in data in the section, right?
Okay.
So when you say like it's created, you have to provide, here is the data,
Oh,
use this data to create the application, right? And then just because I created an application, it's not sufficient, right? You say that like, it's, hey, I need to assign to the lender. Well, how am I gonna know? Because in my data section, it's gonna tell it pick this lender,
okay.
right? So you will have whatever the lender is associated with this L training account is the one that you're gonna provide in the data. So I get that, right? And then I log out. There, one part is missing. Is it sufficient for me to create application or do I have to submit also,
You also have to submit.
right? So you have to say create that application and then you have to step submit it. Because that's when I, as a lender, I can get it and I can see it now. Because I won't be able to see it till that point, okay? Then, like it's when I log in as a lender, you're going straight to change the status of new credit application. There's a step in between, right? Log in, I may get into the homepage, then I have to go look for that particular application, click on it. Then I have to tell it, right, to change the status. Ideally, you want to just make sure that this is in submitted status and change it to this. So you're verifying the status and then you're changing it. Now, how do I know that it worked? So there's one more thing that's missing, right? So you just changed it, you saved it.
Okay.
You have to prove it that the system has saved it. So you log out, you log back as a dealer,
Okay.
view that, is it now in the approved status,
Makes sense.
right?
Yes.
So you have to do that additional steps in order to verify.
So logically it's correct here.
Yeah, I'm saying it's logically it's there. You need to flush out and add a couple of more steps in the detail.
So
Yes, Sheila.
number 2 step, why are we logging in as a dealer one? I thought this was completely lender related requirement.
Neha, you want to answer that?
I'm sorry, what was it?
She said, why I'm logging as a dealer one instead of a lender? Because this is all about lender.
Because I have to create a new application. Because there aren't, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, you're good.
Because in the real world, like what he said, that when you actually go into the work, place, the applications are not created. It's not like the training where the applications are already in the system. So you have to sign in as a dealer and you have to go in there and create that application. So that way we can sign to lender.
Yeah, so you could have put that in the precondition, but here you are putting in the tab to verify. So I think both approaches are fine. Yeah.
What she's doing is she's guaranteed that it's always repeatable because I'm not picking a specific ID every time. I'm creating it and then assigning that ID. Right. So one thing you may also have to do here, Megha, is as you put in, you also have to note down the ID that was created in step 3.
Can I put that ID in the test data or do I have?
It'll change every time because you're creating a new application every time.
Okay.
So what you have to do it is, as they get it here, right? You just note down the ID and then use the ID from the step 3 to go there. Which is fine, right? Because as I'm going through it, you're telling me what to do it and which ID I created, and then that ID is the one which I'm using. So the only thing is the post condition. It should not be, hey, what I can do it. It should be what happened in the system, right? So you can just say, hey, that particular credit application that has been created is now in the approved status in the system. Did everybody understood it? but she did it. What additional things we talked about that needs to be updated? Okay. That's good.
Want to go next?
Okay, all right.
I share this now.
So she loses stuff, right? That's what you wanted.
Your 7 came through, Lisa.
No, it's there. It's there.
No,
No, that's yesterday.
That's yesterday. It hasn't come. So let's look at Shilu's.
Oh.
She's ready to do that.
Don't worry, we'll work through everybody, okay? At least so that you everybody has a chance to work through.
So I'll just go for the very first one.
All right.
Okay, so the test case I did was a negative test case. Where we are searching the lender just by partial information. So
Okay.
for the module, I didn't know, so I just wrote function. Test design by name, dated, release version is 1.0, priority is high. The test title is ability to search the lender by lender name, just by 3 characters. Precondition, I was a little confused at, but I wrote that lender information should exist in the system for somebody to go and even try to search by 3 characters.
Okay.
Dependency, no.
So just one question, Shilu.
Uh-huh.
When you say lender information exists in the system, is there any specific lender information you want to be present in the system, or in general, any general lender information?
I just wrote it as a general.
So how do you gonna make sure that the one that I'm searching is in the system?
So you can technically say Chase,
Okay,
lender name Chase exists in the system.
so, okay,
Or you can just say lender as identified in the data section exists in the system, and then you specify those details in the data section.
okay. Okay. So for test summary, I wrote hot rep cannot search lender with partial name. So I was very confused at that. When it is a negative case, how does the title and the summary should reflect or match?
So let me ask you this one. So the approach that you've taken is specifically in the search scenario. When you're trying to it's prove an absence of something.
Yes.
There could be 2 different possible scenarios, right? That my system functionality may not be working, and that's why I'm not able to find it. Right? So it's very hard to prove the negative test cases in certain conditions, like search. Right? So I would not do it this way. I would do it the other way. I would look for a positive test case, and in those positive test cases, if I'm not able to find the information, then I know the system doesn't work. Okay, because here, when you say it's, I want to let's say I'm trying to put an ABC for a search criteria, and system doesn't return any results. That doesn't tell me that it didn't return any result because there's no such data in the system, or the system itself, the search functionality is not working, and that's why it didn't return a result. Right? Which one is the case? Can you prove one or the other? You can't. Therefore, you have to go flip it from that. You have to look for a positive test case and prove that if I'm searching it is, I can do that. Because if the system was not working and I search it and I know it exists, and it doesn't display, then I know it's broken. If it works, then it should display. So now I proved both the condition. You see where I'm going? Okay, so let's look through the step, right? And we can talk through it. What do you need to change it?
So for the steps, I wrote that we enter the URL to display the home page. Login ID and password for him to be successfully logged in.
Hang on 1 minute.
Okay.
How do I know that I'm successfully logged in? Is there anything missing here?
I think CC is assuming the functionality that step
Is what
will be working.
Yeah. So you should just say, I've logged in successfully in the system, but then what should I see it in order to confirm that I'm successfully logged in,
Okay.
right? So maybe our from homepage is
Homepage
displayed.
is displayed. Okay, okay. So then to validate the requirement itself, I don't search the lender with partial name, 3 characters to validate upfront. Rep cannot search with partial name.
Okay, so here's the thing, this one, right? I'm gonna, for a moment, gonna do this one. Right, and how should we can highlight this particular segment? Now, for a moment, think about it, right? It has 2 actions that you're asking me to do it. One action is search, another one is validate.
Okay.
Which one is the expected result it's gonna perform? So never do more than 1 action in the steps. Okay, that's first rule of thumb. Second rule of thumb is whatever you're asking me, be specific. So when you say search lender with partial name 3 characters, well, what are the 3 characters you want me to search on? Is it 1, 2, 3? Is it ABC? Is it XYZ? What do you want me to put in?
So that's what I put it in my precondition, that this is the application, and now you take it as a step in the test data.
Well, so a little bit differently. So I want you to think it this way, right? In a precondition, I would just say that lender exists as specified in the data section. And when I will go in data section, I'll put the lender name specific. Let's say Chase. Okay. And then here, you can just say start with CHA and make sure you get the results that the Chase is displayed. Right? There may be additional in the system, right, which may pull it, but all I need to make sure Chase shows up. But if there are other which are showed up, then you need to validate that everyone which is came out in the result has that character CHA in their name. Okay, at that time you can do that, because when you do this too, A, I don't have the data, what I'm going to search it, and 2, you're telling me to do 2 things. If one fails, I'm still going to fail it, but I don't know which one failed out of the 2. And again, remember, the post condition is what should be the state of the system. Here, you're just stating a requirement. That's not sufficient.
So then how should you rephrase it?
So your post condition, in this case, you're just doing a search. You're not changing any data in the system. So there is nothing changed in the system. So there is no need for any post condition. Remember, post condition, you should apply it only in changing the state of the system, or you're validating that certain thing has occurred in the system. Example, like login has occurred. Right? But if you say log out, then even that has not happened, right? So I'm out of the system now. So nothing has changed in the system.
So in that case, if there is one more requirement that we went over about email, where email system is dealing and shooting out email of approval and rejection. So in that one, I was doing that and there was no login or anything. How should you write a post condition in that one?
Well, why would not there be a login? Because what is triggering an email sent out?
Approval or rejection.
That means somebody has to log in and approve it. Then only it's going to kick down. Right? And in those scenarios, your post condition would be is that, hey, system has sent an email information to the email system to send out.
Okay,
That's
so
what
that
the
was change that happened.
All right,
All right, let's say who's next.
all right, let me pull up the test.
Okay, can create a dealer user. Okay, hang on, actually. So help me, I understand the first precondition. Help me, what do you meant by second precondition?
Here, users should have the privilege to create different user types.
How is it a precondition? Because that's a requirement, right?
You cannot,
This is a requirement, right? This is what you're testing. You cannot put the same requirement that you're testing it as a precondition. Because what you're telling it is this requirement is working already. Why are you making an effort to test it if it's already working?
yeah, let me. That means no need to write,
Yeah, you don't need that requirement.
and dependencies.
Do you need this dependency? Because that's your data, test data, right? It's not dependency.
That's a not,
So it should be only none. It should not be even this thing.
and somebody, area manager successfully there's a different types of users.
So here's a question. Different types of user. Well, what are different types of user? Which one you're testing?
I'm testing the data.
So what does it make a difference if there are other users that I can create or not? This particular test case, you're saying summary that area manager can successfully create what? A dealer user. That's all you're doing. You're not saying is all different types of user.
Okay. Just to write dealer users.
Yeah. Focus on whatever you're testing is only that. Right? Okay. So walk me through the steps.
Hold on, sir. Okay, and steps. Area manager enters username and password. And expected results. Area manager successfully log in to the Appian system.
Okay, so here I'm missing an action. You have to log in, right? You have to click on the login. Just by entering the data, it's not going to automatically log me in. I have to ask system to log me in. Right? So take a look at the steps we had for super user login, right? It should be a similar thing. Yeah.
And
Now I
click
can go
on-
there. Remember, unless you tell some action to happen in the step, system is not going to do things magically for you. Okay, let's talk through the second one.
Okay, second one, area manager browse and creates a new user page.
Okay,
And
so
it's a-
here, so you have to be careful in terms of wording. Is area manager creating a new user page? Or what you meant to say is here area manager
browse.
navigates to create new user page and a new user page is displayed.
Oh.
Right? You have to get comfortable with the language.
New wording.
Yes, it is wording, but this one is giving completely different message than what you're expecting.
New page will be displayed.
Precisely. New user page will be displayed.
Oh.
But is it a new user page or create user page is displayed?
New
Right? So it's a create new user page is displayed. Okay. Now in the step 3,
And the third one, area manager enters valid name, email, phone number, username, and password.
okay, is this the only 4 pieces of data I need to create a user type?
Username, email address. I think so.
Okay, and what are those information? Where can I find what name you want me to enter? Where can I find what phone number you want me to enter? And remember, the username, that's a system generated thing. It's not something that I'm going to enter. So while your intention for this step is right, but the details are wrong.
You cannot enter username and password.
Show me where it says. There is a requirement says username is going to create it based on first name and last name, right? So you're contradicting that requirement.
It shouldn't be in the same page.
No, so I would say is do a little bit more reading on the create user or user table section in the system requirement. Identify what all pieces of information you provide as a user versus what is generated by the system. And you also have to provide those details in the test data. You cannot just say create with a valid name. Well, what is a valid name?
Valid name, first name and last name.
But what is it? What do you want me to do it? Is it what is a valid name for you? I don't know. You have to provide that data. Anything that you're asking user to enter it, you have to be very specific and provide that information.
So this test case, right, it's about what type of user we are creating here?
Dealer user.
Dealer user, okay.
I have, I don't know.
So we can just make up X1 and then.
Yeah, you have to make it up, but you have to do that. Another aspect is missing here. If you're creating a dealer user, what is the precondition for that? A dealer must exist first before I can create a dealer user. I don't see it anywhere. And how do you know in the data? You have to select which dealership this user is associated to.
So it's important here, this part,
You don't even have that here.
and pick dealer,
Then you have to specify which dealer.
right?
Okay. Here's the other thing. Okay, so you created the user. How do you know system created successfully? Okay. So after this, you have to log out as a lender or an RFRAP user. And using the credential that was generated for this, you have to log in and says, can you log in as a user? Because if I can't log in as a user, how do I know that it has been created? Okay, so you're halfway there. You just need to provide additional details and clarity around it. Remember, you have to go back to the requirement. What is it you're trying to prove it? And do you have steps that helps you to prove that?
Yeah, logically, I think it's there, it's just
Yeah.
cleaning up a little bit, okay? On that
Oh, mine, I
side.
have that, that's the same one.
Okay.
That means, at first dealer should exist.
Yes,
right?
that's a precondition.
I am missing the condition.
So without dealer being existing, you can't. So think of this way, right? German Toyota is the dealer. You don't guarantee that German Toyota exists, but you want to give somebody a job there. Can you? You can, right? That
I don't know.
entity has to exist first. Then you can create somebody there.
So after creating a dealer user account, you want us to go back to dealer user account to validate it.
Yeah, how do I know system created it, but how do I know it's working? Right? You told me the steps to create it. Great. I needed that. But how do I know now the system actually successfully created and not fooling me by giving the results here? Anything could have happened, right? Database could have crashed after this thing. So I don't know whether it created successfully or not. And the only way for me to prove it that it created successfully is to log in as that. Because it could be the other scenario, right? It created with the right user ID, but not the password. Then I cannot log in, then there is an issue.
Yeah, if you know how to write database queries, you can go and validate in the database itself, but here.
Yeah, or yeah, and so you can do it either way, right? You can do a backend database query as a next step, or you can just log in. And the most easiest thing is to log in, because a lot of times you may not have access to the database. Okay. So
And the
shall.
post condition will be the same.
No, now the post condition is, so you're saying is new user can log in the system, but you never proved it that they can log in the system. So post condition is okay, but you have to be much more specific. Who is the new user? Right? So be as specific as you can instead of a generic. Because with generic, yeah, new user, well, there are 15 new users, which one you want me to log in and validate it?
Okay.
Speed up my marker.
All right.
Let's go get Narayan's, because I think he said that he has the same one.
The same one?
Yes.
Okay, then we already discussed, right? So you probably have, you can plus out, I think, or basically work with that.
So you understood, right, what we talked at?
Yeah.
You can go ahead and make the appropriate changes.
Okay.
All right.
Niti?
Yes, so. So, I think I can discuss this one we have discussed.
Okay.
earlier. So we can discuss the second one.
Second one?
Yes, page 3 and 4.
Okay, 3 and 4. Okay, gotcha.
So here I have tried to create a negative test case where area manager cannot create a new dealer user by providing the data which is not required.
Okay, so I understand the intent. I would reword it a little bit differently. I would just say area manager fails to create new user without the required sets of information. Right? Because now you're not just saying is that they cannot create new dealer user. It says that they are making an attempt, but they are failing it to do that because of the lack of the data.
So precondition here is area manager user exists in the system,
Okay.
and test summary is area.
Okay.
Yeah, this is quite repetitive. I was confused between the test summary and post.
That's okay. So the question I have it is, depending on the data that you are saying that's not provided, you may or may not have second precondition that Herschel just wrote it, right? So you said that, hey, I was trying to create a dealer user, but without dealer information. In that case, you don't need this precondition. But you just say, hey, I'm trying to create a dealer user. I'll provide dealer information, but I don't have the email address. Then in that scenario, you need to validate to make sure this is a precondition. Right? So it depends on what type of information you're trying to look into the next steps.
Yeah, so
Okay.
because I was creating a new dealer user, so I was confused whether I should put that precondition or not.
It depends on what data you're missing, that's what I'm saying. So let's look through your,
Okay.
let's go through that.
So the first step would be login as area
Okay.
manager, login successful, expected result.
Okay.
And second step was start creating new dealer, providing data which is not required. So these are the fields which were not required. So
Okay, so a couple of things.
mhm.
When you do this one, right, it's, you're there, right? It's, but the way the wording needs to be there, right? So when I'm thinking about it, right, when you just say it's, you specified what I'm not providing, I would do it different way. I would specify what all I'm providing is, and then try to create it. Right? Because here the instruction is not clear to me. You're telling me that don't go give this, but then what else you want me to give? Versus if you flip it and says, I'm going to give you this 4 pieces of information, and then try to create it. Now you're becoming a much more specific for somebody who is taking this test case and running it. Because remember, when this is going to be most helpful, because initially you wrote it, probably most likely you're going to test it 6 months down the road. When you moved on to the other project, somebody trying to regression test this thing, have no clue what you're doing, right? So the more specific you are, the more it is easier for them. So in any of those cases, when you're providing it a lack of information, don't say what is lacked. Be specific what you're providing it, and then appropriate that, right? Because you don't know what it'll be is when you're providing this sets of information, the display may, hey, you also need such and such information, please provide that. You don't know, right? But if you're just providing only, hey, I'm not gonna give you this. Well, that's good. You told me you're not gonna, but tell me what I should give it for the rest of the thing, which is not anywhere, right?
So these fields were not required, so that's why I put like, these are not required, so I'm providing this information.
Okay, so here's my question to you. Do you feel I can create still a dealer user by not providing this information? Then your whole test case is not resting on the right rules. Right? What this should be is one of the required pieces of information that is required that you're not providing, because then only it's going to fail. If I don't provide this, and if I provide all the other one, it'll still create a dealer user. Right?
Yeah.
So it is kind of defeating the rule that you went about to test it. Right? So this sets of information should be one of the required information, not required.
Okay. So then the scenario would be changed.
Yeah, this field should be completely different. It should be either the dealer or email address or a first name or a last name, because I need the first name and last name to generate the user ID.
Yes.
If you don't provide me last name, I fail to create it.
Yeah, that's what my intent was.
Right, but that's not what this is. Right? So remember, I think it's your intention was right. The clarity that you need to get it in your mind is optional field versus required field. You provided optional field. Remember, even without providing optional field, I can still create a user. So where you need to focus on it is, what is the required field and what pieces of out of that 10 required field I'm not going to provide it. That's going to result in the failure of creating a user. Okay, everybody with me? Ishila.
But this is a negative case. If she's saying that enter the non-specific data 1, 2, 3, whoever is replicating my steps should just enter what I told them. Why will they?
What did
go-
you tell them? You told me don't enter this, but you didn't tell me what else I'm supposed to enter. All she told me is that don't enter this pieces of information. That means she's indirectly telling me enter all the other things. What other things I'm supposed to enter? And if I enter all the other thing, it is going to create the user successfully. So that's going to fail the test case. Our test case is I can't create a dealer user. That's what our test case is. So this information, what she provided, it's not sufficient for me.
So what we should put in the non-required field.
No, what you should put it is all the required field, but you also identify which one of the required field you're not providing the data. Take that one out.
So if you can't put in the first name or the last name, you can't create the
Well, you
user.
can't create the user, right? So I would look at it as look at the dealer user, identify what are the required fields first. And what that tells me, all those things, as long as I provide all those required, I'm able to create the user. So you have to tell it out of this 10 pieces of data, don't provide this and this data. So in your steps, it'll be just as provide this 8 pieces of information and try to create a user. Knowing that the other 2 is missing, it's going to fail. And that is what we're trying to prove it. That if I don't provide the other 2 pieces, I can't create it. Does that make sense? In the post condition, you don't have to put it because you're just saying is that, hey, I'm able to fail it. Well, that's the test result, right? So nothing has changed from my precondition. So as long as nothing has changed from your precondition, most of the time your post condition will be done. The other thing is, Harshal, if you can go back to that screen just for a moment. Scroll it down to the last step. Okay, there. You keep saying it's log out successful. How do I know log out is successful? What should I see in the screen? Be specific.
Click on the login button.
No, I clicked on logout button. But what is my visual indicator that tells me I've successfully logged out?
Homepage. No, sorry.
Yeah, so if you think it's gonna go to homepage, put that thing.
I mean, generally, your test case should end when you are validating a condition.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you are saying step number 2, you are able to create a new dealer user, that's where you're supposed to end
Yeah.
your test case.
Okay.
Now logging out, I can go and close the browser, it doesn't really matter, right? It's irrelevant at the point.
So then don't you want to go back to step 1 and repeat it to make sure the dealer user is not working?
Yeah, so typically like it's you can do a cleanup, right? As Harshal said, it is not required, but is it a good practice to do it? Yes. Because then if I rerun it, I should be able to do that. However, just by saying logout successful is not sufficient. What is the visual things that I'm going to confirm it that logout is successful? Right? Here you put a visual successful, right? That login is successful. Well, but what does successful mean? Remember what we said, that which homepage I should see it as an area manager to validate that I'm successfully logged in.
So how are you going to validate that they cannot create a new dealer user? So that you're supposed to validate.
Yeah, that's what we talked about, right? So this pieces of data is not right sets of information. She
I
has
know,
to
but
give it
what
up.
they should validate on the screen, or what is that they are
Yeah.
expecting to see? What do you mean by not?
Yeah, so Harshal is saying, this is a statement you're making. What you should see in the screen that validates that statement.
So when the area manager is trying to save this information and create a new user, it couldn't be saved. So.
But what you should see it, what you're saying is, let's say I enter all this information
Mhm.
and I click create. What should I see here that tells me that this is failed to create?
Do I get error notification?
Yes.
Then
Error
be
message?
specific, what error notification you get it.
Then you should put that I shall see error message,
Okay. Yes.
okay?
There's
So
the
you need to validate that piece of information.
Yeah.
It's a computer language.
Not even computer language. When you should see it in your front of your screen, right? When you try to log in or create something, either you get it that, hey, failed to create, right? So take an example, right? You get a user ID and a password in any of the stints, and you try to log in and you click login. If you fail it,
If I cannot
it tells you at the top, right?
Yeah, either.
That user ID or password combination is not right, and that's why it's saying not login.
There is some error.
What is you gonna get that here? That's what Harshal is pointing it to. Okay. So I think it's, you guys are getting the logical steps, but you need to start getting into the next level where it has to be clean up and provide specific detail so that somebody can actually take it and run with it. All right, so Nikita. Yeah.
Actually, I wrote in the book, so I just sent a picture with book.
That's okay.
So,
It might be hard to read it.
Yeah, let me download it and I'll do it.
or you can zoom it.
Yeah, you can just do a plus here, Harshal. On the screen itself. Should allow you to zoom in. So walk through it. I think it's a little bit harder to
I
read
just read
through
it,
it.
yeah. The test title is ability to search lender by lender name.
Okay, so it's the same thing as one of the one that we had it.
Uh,
She had a negative test case, you were trying to do a positive test case. Okay,
So precondition is lender name can be displayed into the system. And the test.
okay, so here's the question. Who you are logging in as and who you are searching in. You're searching lender, but what do I am logging in? Am I logging as site administrator? Am I logging as dealer? Am I logging as RFLAG?
As a dealer.
Okay, so shouldn't you have that as a precondition that the dealer that's credentialed and can log into it?
Okay, I need to specify the dealer.
Yeah, then you can put that, or I'm assuming you have that data in the test data section.
And
All right,
the test summary, lender can logged in successfully in the system.
so hang on, let's go back to Herschel. Can you go back to precondition, right? So when you say it's lender name can be displayed into the system, that's not the precondition. Right, whether I display certain things or not, that's irrespective. What should the precondition do is lender exists in the system. They should be present in the system for me to even display it.
Okay, when dealer can be logged in.
Dealer can be logged in, but like this thing, if there is no such lender in the system, do you think your test case is gonna work?
Okay, no.
Not, right, so then you should put that in precondition that lender exists in the system. And you have to be specific what lender should be existing in the system. Okay, so let's go through the steps.
Okay, let's enter URL on the browser and click on the site,
Okay.
and then,
Okay, so
think
here,
it's,
here's the other word,
yeah,
not clicking on the site, you're clicking on the login.
okay,
Words matter. Okay, because you're telling somebody in some instruction to do certain things.
And I have one question. Is that we have to record to third person, right? When writing this.
So you don't have to have third person.
uh,
Just think of it, right? I'm writing an instruction that somebody else is reading it. Can they follow it or not? It doesn't matter whether I'm writing in the first person or third person to that. Right? Now, if he says, hey, I can log in, that's probably not the scenario that you're trying to do, right? Whoever is
whoever is-
providing the data can log in. So you have to write it that way.
and the second step is then enter lender user ID and password in the login system.
Okay, so here's a question. So if I'm trying to log it, check it if Herschel's information exists in the system, do I need his password?
No.
So why are you asking password? Because there's a security concern, right? Now you're expecting dealer to know every lender's user ID and password, so they can log in as a, pretend like a lender, and they can approve it. It's not the right way to do it. Right? So think logically, right? I think that you're missing a couple of steps. What I want you to think about it is, how would I go into the system if I were to search something?
Okay, so it means like dealer has to do everything.
Yeah, in this scenario, it's a dealer. Who is searching? Dealer is searching
Dealer
lender,
is
right?
searching, yeah.
Lender doesn't even know whether the dealer is searching them or not,
Okay.
right? So when you go to the Google and you search for, let's say, a Chase, Chase doesn't know whether you're searching them or not, right? So you need to provide everything that I needed in order to do this function, not Herschel, if I'm searching for Herschel.
Okay.
Okay, so I would say is that like it's based on the discussion. I want you to go ahead and rewrite it because you're missing a couple of steps. Let's rewrite it and let's review that.
Okay.
Did we cover everybody, I believe?
I think we did, everybody. Kingsley, it's online. Kingsley, you have a test case that you can share? Is he there? Still in mute.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we cover, so everybody's clear in terms of how we go about this process, right? So you had an opportunity to review somebody's first. We still know that there is still needs some cleanup or tune up for each one of the test cases. So here's what I want you to do. It's about 10:53. So what we want you to do is continue working in the team, but we want you to write 2 additional test cases
As a team.
as a team, right? And then you can decide whichever way you want to like it's write together step by step, or you want to like discuss it. One person writes one, other person writes another one, and then you go to review. That's your call, right? What we wanted as a team in the next, 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't give you extended time. You have a deadline of 45 minutes. Pick 2 test cases, not one of the ones that we talked about it. We want you to pick completely 2 different test cases that we haven't talked about it. Okay. and then come to the detailed test case data like that. And we'll review it within 45, at the end of 45 minutes.
And write in the proper format.
Yeah.
This time, use the template,
Yeah.
right? And we write it directly in the computer if you guys want.
Yeah, I would prefer that. It's not want or not. I would prefer them to write on a computer so it can be shared and everybody can view it. Because you will need that for tomorrow. And tomorrow, all of you, we expect you to bring the laptops. Because we're gonna start looking into the systems as we're gonna go through it tomorrow. Okay, everybody clear? Questions? Online, are you guys good? I'm gonna put you back into the same break room that I put you earlier.
Sure.
Okay, I'm sending you in the breakout room, and we'll get back at 11:45.
Hey, I'm having a question.
Yes,
Can I just go ahead and share my screen so that I can explain it clearly?
let's talk through it. What are you trying to do it? Because I think we already kind of moved the people in the rooms.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me move to the room. Is that okay?
Yeah, just tell me what you want though. Hang on, what do you wanted to do it when you wanted to share this?
Okay, so I do try to create one test case. With the requirement, lender can only access the credit application assigned to them. And I do wrote the precondition like lender must have at least one credit application.
Which is fine, but you have to provide that ID for that application also. You can't just write generic, it has.
Okay, so I need to write the dealer created a new application with the ID, and then
Or you have to specify that which application exists in the system that is assigned to lender. You have to get that ID and put that ID as part of the prerequisites.
Oh, okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So let me move to the room.
All right, we'll see everybody in 45 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
We have what we have is lender can only access the credit application assigned to them. So we came out with the test.
Okay, so help me a little bit more about your precondition. When you say it's lender account already exists in the system with credentials provided. So I think the first thing you might want to do is move your credentials to test data section. But so you have only one lender account exist, or there are more than one?
We have more than one, but we only, as a lender, you only work with the one one that you are able to access it with the one that you have the user with the one as associated with the inquiries that you have that has been given to you.
Okay, so you have one lender that you're going to use in your test case. That's fine.
Right.
And then how many credit applications you are looking at it? Because that's clear from precondition. When you say credit application name assigned, but it doesn't give us any information that how many credit are you saying only one lender and one credit application? Is that what the precondition talks?
Well, I'm sorry to cut in, but the whole ideology behind that was that so that we can be able to test one specific credit application in regards to this particular scenario.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you think about scenario, right?
Mhm.
You think one application and one lender is going to be sufficient to test that scenario?
No, there should be more than one.
Right. So then shouldn't those things laid out in your precondition if you think that there are more than one lender going to be existing?
Got it.
So let's look through the steps.
Kinsley, do you want to continue with that?
Yeah.
That's right here on the board.
So right there we have the test step, which is the access the UAI, which is the website. And then we open the application from the home page. And then later on, log in using provided credentials. Like,
So Kingsley, let's talk through it, right? So the first two steps, I understand, right? You may have to provide additional detail, like what do you have it in the super user login case. So I would prefer that a little bit more, but I understand the intention where you're going here. For step number 3, I want you to think for a moment. If I'm a lender and I know some application is coming to me, will I know who is the person requesting to borrowing the money? So in other words, do you think it's feasible for lender to find somebody's credit application by first name and last name when I don't even know that that application is submitted to me?
no.
Right? So it's like you going to Chase and Chase already knows your name and everything, and then they kind of look up and see what your application. Chase won't know it till actually your application shows up into their system, right?
Yes.
So there was a reason why there is no search by first name and last name functionality. Have you seen anywhere in the requirements say that I can access credit application by first name and last name? Right. So your step number 3 onwards, they are not right. So you need to step back a little bit and think about it, how logically you're going to do this work. That means a lender can access only that application first. Because what you have done is, right, is allowing people to search by first name or last name or partial name. That doesn't say anything that I can access only my application.
Okay.
Mm.
Right? So I think what I would recommend is look at some of the recordings that we did talk about on Thursday. We did talk about this scenario and we did talk about high-level steps. And then go back and look at it and understand that and say, is this trying to do the same thing?
Got it.
Got it.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Do you guys have any other test case, or this was the primary one that you worked on it?
Yeah, this was the primary one we're working on at the moment.
Okay, so what I would recommend is look at that and keep refining it, that you need to get both, at least 2 test cases ready from this exercise and 4 from previous before tomorrow morning.
Got it.
Make sure you guys have 6 working test cases before you walk in the morning tomorrow.
All right.
All
Will
right.
do. Thank you.
Nathan, Chevalini, do you guys want to share the work that you guys did?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead and share your screen then.
Mhm. Just give me a minute. Okay. Are you able to see my screen? Okay, I think yes. Okay, let me take the requirement. The requirement we did is area manager can sorry.
So in this one, Chevalini, I'm kind of looking at the test title.
Mhm.
You put the whole requirements. What is the specific scenario that this test case is trying to test?
Okay, you're asking whether this is a user dealer or R-Front rep user. Which one area
Yeah.
am I creating?
Which one you're creating? Right.
Actually wrote for both actually.
Yeah, we wrote for both.
Yes.
So do you remember like we draw the tree?
Yeah,
We had put 8 test cases,
yeah.
8 leaves.
Yep.
So you need to write the test cases for each of the leaf. Because when you try to do both,
Oh, okay.
for example, if the system is implemented where I can create a dealer user, but cannot create RFREP user, will you pass this test case or will you fail it?
No, we failed it. Because we said that we can create both of them with the same steps.
So I would still write 2 different test cases because
Okay.
if one fails it, there is no clarity which one, whether it's passed or failed.
Yeah. I think it was my fault. I thought that we could just write the main thing and then the leaves are the ones that we have to include those in the steps.
So one piece of advice when you go, don't try to group together a whole bunch of test cases and write as one test case.
Okay.
That is not what is expected when you go out in the industry. If you build a lead, you
Yeah.
need to do it each individual test cases.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. All right. So you have an area manager account exist. All right. Let's go through the steps. Now, test summary doesn't match with your title, right? Your
Is it
test
like-
summary is saying that, hey, I can log in as area manager. That's not the purpose of test case, is it?
Oh, so what do we like basically write on the summary?
So summary is essentially in English. Think of a test title as a shortened name, and the
Mhm.
summary is providing you the detail of that name.
Oh, okay. I thought that in the summary we either write what we have as information or
Go back to look at the site super user login, some example that I can put in.
yeah, makes sense.
So your summary is probably providing you detail of your title of what exactly you're doing. So a title could be something like area manager can create dealer user. In
Yeah.
summary, it could be is area manager can create a dealer user, can successfully create the dealer user using all the valid information. in the
Oh,
system,
that makes more sense now. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
providing valid data. So it's a positive test case versus fails to create it because of insufficient information. That's a negative test case.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's proceed to the steps.
You want us to go through the steps or you will just read through?
Second step, right? The first step is good, I understand.
Mhm.
Second step, I would put something like it's user ID and the password as provided for area manager. Okay, so you're telling me that you're like, okay, so I see what you're saying. Okay, step number 3. The expected result, I would probably do it a little bit differently when you're saying a new user portal pops up.
Mhm.
Industry has a definite definition of what is a portal versus a site versus a form.
Oh,
Portal is a completely whole new things, right? So when you go to Amazon website,
Mhm.
it's just a website. It's not a portal. Portal is a much more broader thing than the site.
that makes
So I
sense.
would change that to just says, hey, a new user creation screen pops up or form pops up.
Makes sense.
Okay. So then you go into step number 4. What is the action you're asking me if I'm running this test case to do?
Step number 4. So
Step number-
basically, yeah, we're trying to say that you have to select what kind of user you want to create. For example, either you want to create a dealer user or you want to create a RFID user.
Same thing as step number 5.
Step number 5 says that I choose to create a dealer user, for example. So I click on the
Right.
dealer user button.
So think about it from action point of view. What action I'm doing on step number 4 that is different than step number 5?
The step number 4 is just that, like, clicking on the create user button that pops up the like the list of the users that I can create. And
So
compared to number 5, we just click on the specific user we want to create.
So why are those 2 separate steps? Isn't that one and same action? I'm selecting a
Yeah.
drop-down, a value from a drop-down.
Yeah, that's
You're breaking it down, click on drop-down, and then you're breaking it down. From the drop-down, select this.
yeah, makes sense.
One and same action.
Yeah. Those both are the pretty much same stuff. And then number 6, we just said that you just need to either answer one of the one of the 3 information given below, and then click the create button to generate the.
Okay, so now think of this way, right? On step number 6, you said that, hey, here are one of the 4 test cases.
Mhm.
You figured it out what you want me to do,
Oh yeah,
right? User is not a telepathy, a mind reader that he can say, oh, you want me to do this first, then this. The whole purpose of test case is be specific and tell exactly what they should do it and what result they should expect it.
yeah, that makes sense.
So what you did it is, if you look at it, you wrote down all 8 test cases that we talked about as the lead into one test case.
Yeah, we understood it earlier when you just
So
said
what I
that we just.
I would recommend, because this one is now not clear to me anymore. I would say is go back to the drawing board. You have logically, you are like it's in the right direction, but you need to break
Yeah.
this to 8 test case and then tell me 1 or 2 specific test case or lead, and then give that detail.
Yeah, that makes sense. For example, we can just use the partial information as the test case, and then everything else does not work, but the partial information should work.
Yes, you have to break it down into 8 test cases.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Mhm.
So why don't you guys, since you have most of the information, you should be able to break it down
Mhm.
and get 8 test cases created.
Yeah. So do we go to the break room again?
I don't know, like it's, anybody has any questions on the direction that what we've been talking about? Do you understand why this is a much more confusing, because it's all 8 test cases into one. So I don't know which one passes, which one fails. There's no easy way for me to figure it out.
That makes sense.
Okay. So why don't we stop at that, Ted, have you and Shivya work with that, and then we will just go ahead and review the other test cases while we have time here today.
That's fine. So we can jump into the break room again.
Yeah.
We need the access to jump back to the break room.
No, you don't need to run. Just stay here.
Okay.
Review everybody, and then you can work it offline later. Okay.
Oh, okay. Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So who else in the classroom? Marshall, did you get any?
Yes, I know.
So Ted, you can go ahead and stop sharing.
Okay.
Sorry, Lucia was sharing. So you go ahead.
Okay.
When you like to do pull up. Is it 2 application mode or email notification?
The email notification.
Okay.
Okay, I understand. Let's go to the steps. So here is, I'm a dealer, submitted application, lender is going to get that email. Okay, Ursula, you can stop that.
What does this number mean?
Lender shall receive a notification and email. Okay. Let's go. All right. Walk me through the steps. Yeah, Mega.
So first, we're entering the URL that was provided in section, which is the Arclone is the website, and then the application homepage displays. And then we put in enter the dealer username and password that was provided in data section. The expected is the dealer can log in successfully, and then the homepage is displayed for dealer. And then the dealer creates the credit application here.
So hang on for that. So do you have all the data for step number 3? What all data you needed to create successfully a credit application?
Oh, for the.
Yeah,
first
so,
name,
so
last
if I have to do the step 3,
name. Okay.
do you have all the information required to create a credit application in the data section?
Oh, I didn't put that. I just put in yeah, I don't have that in the dealer.
All right, you should,
Okay.
right? So if you're doing step 3, you have to provide, here are the pieces of data that you will need in order to create a credit application.
Okay.
Because here, what you're assuming is, right? So you're without any data, you just say, hey, Kim Jones's credit application.
Okay.
So what if I kind of put my own data? Am I going to get see Kim Jones?
So what I did is under the data application or under test data, I put in the credit application that we created, which was 21103. We just kind of assumed, but we put that in the test data, so that's not.
Yeah, so if you're putting it step as created, then you
Okay.
need to provide all the detail.
Okay.
If you're putting a precondition that this credit application already exists
Okay.
in the system, that's a different thing. Then you can refer only that ID. But if you're not doing that and you're doing like what you're doing it, I would put all the data required to create a credit application,
His name, city,
everything. So I would look it into the actual credit application table, see what is the minimum required information. At least I would put all of that,
Okay.
if not anything more than that.
And after that, dealer submits the credit application to lender, so then lender receives the email notification for.
Okay, so hang on to that, right? So how does system know which email address I need to send notification?
Provide in the data section, the email address.
Is it in the data section? So do you understand how the whole data is set up? That's the question. And that's why I wanted to, it's good to see this particular test case. Right. So when the dealer submits it, system has to figure it out. Hey, which lender it is assigned to, and send an email only to that person, right? It's not like if there are 50 lenders in the system, not all 50 gets an email. Right. So that means I have to figure it out from system what it is. Remember, there's no magic. So somewhere in the data setup, you have to tell it, hey, for this lender, this is the email address. Where do you do that?
I guess where do you assign email to a lender? What functionality? Or where do you send it out?
I know your initial inclination is, hey, I need to provide an email address. Now think logically. Okay. I'm a dealer, user. I pick the lender Chase. Is it reasonable for me to know what exactly the email address of the Chase is, so that like it's every time I click it submit for Chase, I'll enter that email address? It's not feasible, right? And then what if Chase sends it, okay, we're no longer going to use this email address, we're going to use this. How are they going to communicate to the whole world? Okay. So that's what Harshal is pointing it out. Well, where does lender specify the email address? Okay. That's why it's important when you read the design document. For a lender, there is an email, right? So when you're creating a lender in the system, that's when you put the email address. And then once you select the lender from the dealer, Now, system already knows that, hey, for this lender, this is the email, and that's what I need to send. Right? So that's why you need to make the connection. Second thing is though, how do I know that the email was actually sent out, right? So you said that, hey, I'm going to log out as a dealer user, I'm going to log in as a lender. Is there anywhere the requirement that, hey, if I log in as a lender, I'll be able to see all the notifications that came to me in an email? It doesn't, right? It goes in my email system. It doesn't come into the Airflow system. So if you're testing this functionality, how would you know for sure that you got an email as a lender? Does anybody know?
How would you validate or verify?
How do you know email thing is working?
So we did the same case.
Okay.
And what we did is our system sends out email for the credit card application 1, 2, 3 media.
Okay.
So then the sixth step we did is sign in as lender.
Okay.
Go to sign in lender's email. Go
Okay.
to the inbox, make sure credit application 1, 2, 3 exists. Log out from the email, log out from lender.
That's good, right? But how are you going to know which mailbox to log in and sign in?
You get on the right track.
Which email? If I'm saying
Yeah.
lender 1, you should have a specified.
Okay,
email
so
or-
lender one specified email address. Do you have access to that? Like, so if I say lender one is Chase, and Chase has a specific email address, do you have access to Chase's email address to check it? So while you're writing the steps, it's great. But if you don't have access to that mailbox, how are you going to log in to even check it whether it was received or not? So how are we going to deal with that issue?
Is there any confirmation email back?
There's no confirmation back required. How do you know that the mail is actually sent?
We can check in the sent folder.
Which sent folder? Do you have access to the system sent folder? It's the system which is sending.
So
My end, I can
It's
check.
not coming in from you, it's coming from system. If it's coming from you, then you can go and check your send box. It's coming from system. System may be sending thousands of emails. How do you know which one is going where? This is where the skills of the tester is going to come into play. That's why people is going to pay you money, not because you can write a pretty English.
So then how do you test it?
You guys tell me. You wrote the test case. You wrote the test steps. I didn't write it. I'm just asking you a question. Hey, I can't run this test case because I don't know all this thing. You wrote it. You tell me how you deal with that.
Again, that goes back to the question, do they have understanding of the technique, what it means, and do you have access to set it up from the QA standpoint?
So then just to test it, why don't I write my email address and check my?
Aha, now you're going in the right track. How are you going to write in your own email address?
Where would you write your own email? Where do you?
Test data,
Which test?
Which specific?
towards the lender. So I
Towards the
can go
lender.
back and check my email address as a lender to see if credit application 1, 2, 3 exists in my. inbox.
Precisely. So when you write this test case, first you need to understand what all test data you need to do to set it up. Set the test case, then write the instructions. So you're right on the right track, Shiva. You had to first create a lender with an email that you can access that email inbox. Right? You specify that. You create that lender. Then when you create a credit application, you actually assign it to that lender because now you have access to their mailbox. You need to make sure that you provide that specific data, right? So somebody who's doing it can actually get that too. Then you log out as the dealer after you submitting it. Then you go to the lender's mailbox. Validate that you did receive it. And that's what you just put it up here as the next steps. Log in the mailbox, XYZ with this user ID and a password. Go to inbox, validate that you have this email.
So that email address and password, I also have to specify that data section that I use.
Yeah.
So somebody can-
Because if I'm running it,
Yeah.
now I have access to your inbox. Right? But what that also means that I have to go into that mailing system and make sure that there is such user ID and password and there is a mail account created for that. So you have to do all those setup first, then write this test case and validate it. Maybe you still look for flex.
No, I'm just,
You're seeing what Herschel is writing.
yeah, I'm just like,
Is everybody clear what you need to do? Okay, logically, you're right in the right track. But in order to make that happen, you have to do some test data and test setup first before you can do that. Now, if you flip it, right, the test case would be is, hey, lender approved and with certain credit application. And you want to make sure the dealer got notification, then you have to do the similar thing for dealer too. Okay. All right. You had another test case or just this one?
Yes.
Can we look at that second one too? Okay, so this is only they can assign to them. Okay, let's scroll it down. Only thing which you missed here is you're creating credit application. C1 to lender. So you have only one lender. You're just putting it that same lender can see it more than one application for themselves. Okay. Same comment here, right? Provide the details for that. Don't just write simple as a lender. Be specific. Which lender? Because somebody has to assign it, right? So logically, the logical flow is right. The detail is what you need to write in the steps. Okay. Good. All right. So let's go see. Okay, let's look at PPs. All right. So site administration only information submitted by any dealer. Hope we understand your precondition.
So here I assume that there are two dealers existing in the system, D1 and D2.
Uh-huh.
And sorry, some typing error.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of confused. What do you say with that?
So I assume that there are two dealers existing in the system and two credit application exist in the system that both are associated to one dealer. So D1 has both application while D2 has zero.
Okay, so here's my question. If D2 has zero application, then it's not relevant. Why do you and I care if he exists or doesn't?
So when I check the credit application for dealer 2, I should get the result 0. Like there shouldn't be any credit application.
Right, but again, going back to the same scenario that we talked about earlier, right? The absence of something doesn't prove specific because I don't know whether the system is not working, that's why I didn't pull it up, or there is no truly anything, and that's why I didn't pull it up. All right. I can't validate whether it was working, and that's why I didn't pull it up anything, or it is truly nothing, but the system is not working. Right. So I would, if you're looking at that specific thing, that site administrator can see all the applications submitted by a dealer, then I would not even put a dealer D2 here in the context. I would just create a dealer D1. It says that it has more than one credit application and can site administrator see all of it. That's all it is. Okay. Yeah, or like it's just Harshal pointing it out. You need to have, if they're putting two dealers in the context, make sure they both have some so that you can view a combined set of all those applications.
I can verify that it has two more dealers.
Okay. Let's scroll it down in the steps. So here is the question, right? When you say search application submitted by dealer one, how do I know? Right? Are you saying that if I log in as a site admin, I'm going to have a search button that I'm going to pick it up a dealer? See, this is not clear to me.
So I'll go to the dealer homepage and search dealer one first, and then I'll go to.
Okay, so I'm searching a dealer, right? That's what I'm saying. So what you're telling me, if I'm a site administrator, I have to search a dealer first before I can view that application. Is that the requirement? So as you write the test cases, one thing you have to keep in mind also is that, is this functionality going to be available in the system? If it is not going to be available, is it helpful for you writing a test case that you're going to be able to do that?
Should I say like view date applications?
I don't know, right? That's what I'm asking you, right? Here you say that I'm going to search credit application submitted by dealer one. But when you look into the requirements document, there is no such requirement for site administrator to search application specifically only to a dealer. Right? So most likely what's going to happen is if I log in and then I may have a view applications button. But when I view applications, it may just show me everything. Right? Because I don't know whether each dealer has submitted specific or not. Put it in the business context. If I'm a site administrator, am I going to be interested on things submitted only by a dealer by dealer? If I have 500 dealers in the system, it's completely impractical for me to go one at a time to view 500 guys' applications. Right? Show me everything that we have, and if I need it, I can just drill it down to a dealer. So that one step here that you need to do it. Then the second thing is when you say view application C4. And so tell me this thing. It's unclear to me.
So I assume that like C4 is associated, like that was my precondition that C4 and C5 was associated with dealer one. So when I was trying to validate it, I was looking at the application C4. So my expected result was C4 is submitted by D1. So there are the two applications which exist in the system already.
Okay, so look for a moment. I don't know. You're saying that I'm going to search application by that dealer. And that's why I'm going to show C4 and C5. So if I'm searching by a specific dealer and showing me only those two, isn't this two steps are kind of mute points? Because that the whole thing I searched by dealer D1 in order to come to those two.
I think maybe she understood the requirement is they need to be able to see the detail.
Right.
Is that what it is? Maybe?
Yes, I was just.
So you're opening up one application and see if you can give one.
Right. So then I would put that. But here's what I'm trying to say. If I came to those two applications, only because I was able to search it through the dealer, then this two has to be true. Otherwise, it will not show up into the first result to begin with. Right? So the step 3 and 4, even though you wanted to see the detail, it doesn't add any value towards trying to validate that requirement. Right? It would have been different. You would say, hey, I see a whole bunch of applications. And I click on C4. And in the dealer field, I should see D1. right? Then it's different thing. So a lot of times we may think a logical step, right? But you also need to validate. Does that logical step, it's still valid if I put in the context of the previous step. If it's not, then something is missing. Okay. Then you try to do it so by D2 and show 0, right? So if I look at it, right, you're trying to do intent, like it's logical mindset is going in the right direction, but the flow doesn't make sense to me. Right? So I would have done it as logging a site admin, then I see all the applications, then I click on those two and see it. Right? However, all it just tells it that I can see some application. But what is my requirement? I can see it, everything submitted by everybody. Right?
Yeah, I think CC has looked at the system probably. Yeah,
Right.
that's how we came up with the steps. But sometimes the system may not be implemented correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, so there might be some discrepancy. That's what you are trying to find out here.
Okay. So I would like it's kind of rethink it. You're going in the right direction. Okay, but just ask yourself a question is, hey, if I do this one, does it make sense? Or it's already done by this one, so this is a redundant step. Then I don't need that step. Okay. And look at here, right? So your post condition that I can see is submitted by any dealer. But I didn't conclusively prove that I can see it, everything submitted by D2, right? So I would go back a little bit and says, hey, I have 2 dealers, D1 and D2. Maybe I have 3 applications. C1 and C2 submitted by D1 and C3 submitted by D2. And then when I log in, I see 3 applications. When I click on C1, I can verify that A, it is submitted by D1 by looking at the dealer into that data. And then when I click on C3, I can see it is submitted. Therefore, now I know it. There's only 2 dealers in the system, and they submitted 3 applications. And I'm able to see all 3 of them, and I verified that each one is submitted by different people. Then I'm good. Then I can say this post condition, right? So think about writing that step. So adjust your steps to reflect those things. Okay. Let's look at the second one. Or
Second was same,
same? Okay.
like system should notify lender about it.
Okay. All right, that's good. So let's look at Narayan's. So it's the same thing that we talked about, right? So you guys got an understanding of what you're on the right track.
Yeah.
It's just that setting up the data so that you have access to all those things to validate is what is needed. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Now again, just like what I told Bega, if you're saying that I'm going to submit a credit application, make sure you provide all the detail for credit application submission.
So this one is not like a repeating, but let's take a look at it quickly.
Search and view their credit application only. Okay, scroll it back just one moment. So here, what is the relationship between this 2 credit application and dealer?
It belongs to dealer D1.
Okay, so then I would put it that also as part of precondition. Because it's not any credit application 1, 2, 3, and 3, 4, 5. But that application has a relationship to D1, and that has to be true before you can write the test cases, right?
Yeah.
So I would just put a dealer D1 exists in the system. Credit 1, 2, 3, and 3, 4 exist in the system, and just says that those 2
Belongs to
credit applications were created by dealer D1. Okay. All right, so this one is talking about only a piece of it, right? So you're gonna have another piece or 2 or 3 other test cases to combine to say it's okay, when you run this 4 and all of that passes, then it meets that requirement, okay? Right. So
Now, this one, this test case, right?
it's only partial, Herschel, that's what I'm saying. There are 3 leaves, they just one
Yes,
leaf.
Okay, all right. So this one is talking about only one, but there could be multiple. leaves.
Multiple ones, yeah.
Yes, we just talked about just one
Okay.
leader.
Yeah. So if you can scroll down the steps, Herschel, I want to make sure that those are right. So here I would think about step 3 and 4 a little bit differently. Okay, when you say click on list of applications submitted, when you say all application submitted should be displayed, shouldn't you want in this list, this 2 application also, right? So you don't need a separate 3 and 4 step. It should be just one step, combined step. That when you look at that, both applications should be visible in that list, and that's good enough. All right. I think it's, did we cover everybody? We covered all 5 groups?
Yeah, I believe these are the only ones that, let me see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of 12:37. So here's a couple of things. You want to create now or you want to create tomorrow?
We can create now, sir, to save the time.
Okay. So we're going to switch gear a little bit. We're going to now that you understood the process of how to take a requirement, build a leaf, and write the test case, right? Now we're going to go do that in the tool. And the tool that we're going to use it is Azure Devops. So Herschel is going to ask you certain things because you need to create those accounts so that you can start using that tomorrow. So he's going to walk you through a couple of steps. So what I would anticipate is if you don't have that account, create the account. If you already have an Outlook account or
Outlook account is on
Hotmail, it's good enough as long as you have access to those accounts.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you have access to those accounts. Okay. So, or another recommendation, just create an Outlook account for this class. That way it's much more easier for you to associate that with everything. Okay. So follow the steps as Herschel is saying it. And let's create that account and I'll tell you what you need to be ready for tomorrow.
Yeah, go to the outlook.com, right? And then click on create free account. It's just like a standard email account, right? That's what you guys have to create. So just put something that you can remember and then make sure you note down the password as well. Because a lot of people have trouble getting into the account next day.
Yeah. So create account. Remember, and I think it's going to ask you to do 2-factor authentication.
Whatever new account, if you already have it, then you can use it.
I will have other like Yahoo.
No, you need an Outlook account.
Just Outlook or Live or Hotmail, one of that.
Okay. So go ahead and create it. Some of it will ask you 2-factor authentication, so it'll ask you to provide either alternate email address or a cell phone where they can text you the code.
Yeah. Yeah, we can just sign out. Yep. Yeah, then close out and yeah. Yep. So I'm just creating something for myself. I believe like the online folks are creating it.
Yeah, so online team member, just make sure you also create Outlook account, just like what Herschel is showing you.
Right. What if I already have an account?
As long as you have an Outlook account, you're good. Let's make sure you
Awesome.
have it ready in a password.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, most of the people have it on phone. And you forget.
Yeah.
So you can log in through the computer tomorrow.
All right. Okay, once you created that, then you're good. Just make sure you are able to log in into that email. Let me know if you're running into issues. I'm going to take silence as a golden that everybody was able to create an account. All right. So just jot it down, user ID and a password, or if you're like me, sometimes I don't remember the password and I scramble it to reset the password all the time. So what we want you to be ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to get into the tool of how actually all the work that you do, we have done so far, how we do that in the tool, including once you have a test case, how are you going to test it? And how are you going to record all the results into the tools? In order to prepare for that, you need to have test cases. Not the logical sequence, the detailed one. Okay. So you guys have been working it over the last 7-8 days to write different test cases. If you're not ready to the final detail of what we've been asking, which I see most of you are there, but you still have to do the final touch up and put the detail. Get those things ready before tomorrow. My expectation is everybody will have at least 8 test cases ready before tomorrow morning to write into the tool. Okay. Now, you're going to encounter a phase of the course that if you're not caught up with it so far, you're not going to have much time to catch up. Okay. So make sure you put in an effort. Because from now onwards, we're going to assume that, hey, we've gone through this, you already done it. You had like 8 days to write 6 test cases, right? You won't get that much time with the work. You'll get needed right away type of thing. So make sure you prepared it. And then tomorrow we can get into the tool, because that's one of the other key thing that you need to get used to it is navigate yourself around the tool, because that's what the expectation is, that you will be writing the test cases. If there are tools, then you will not be writing it into the Word document like what you wrote it. You will be writing directly into the tools. So we're going to take it. It'll save you a significant amount of time if you have it written down into the Word, because then you can use cut and paste feature instead of typing everything manually. So that's what we'll do tomorrow morning. Bring your laptop. You don't need to worry about whether it's a Mac or a Windows machine. It'll work on either one. And the account that we created today will show you how you can use it to link it to the what is known as Azure Devops. It's the tool from Microsoft for essentially the entire lifecycle management. That's what we're going to talk about. Okay, it's similar to HPLM, but HPLM is kind of getting a little bit out of the favor because it's much more server-based machine application, where the whole world in development side is moving to cloud. So we're going to show you the cloud one, and then we'll go back at a later point and we'll show you how HP ALM tools will look like. But most likely, like as you will work on DevOps or Jira or a Rally type of tools, that's what we're going to show you. Okay. Any questions before we wrap it up for the day? Online team members, do you have understanding of what is expected before tomorrow morning?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
We have seen some of them wrote it on with the handwriting, so make sure they have it.
Yeah.
In the template.
Yeah. If you get time, let's make sure it's in the template instead of a piece of paper, because that'll speed up significantly to your work tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Got it.
Right? Then I think we can call it a day for today. just stay warm. It's going to be cold tomorrow. So when you come here, bundle up. And we'll see everybody bright and early tomorrow morning.